Whenever you're ready.
Are we live?
We should be live streaming now.
Okay. Vinod? Okay.
May I just say a few words before we start? We will be recording this webinar for distribution later. So Enrico will reach out to people with the link so that people can view the video of this whole webinar session. But just to let you know that it's being recorded. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. So I think it's time to begin if we are live. So good afternoon to all our Indian friends and audience, and good morning to those who are still in the morning, like us in Geneva. It's 11:30 in Geneva, it's 3 p.m. In Delhi. And I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar on leaving the one behind in water, sanitation and hygiene, consultations on SDG 6 of 14 vulnerable population groups for the India 2020, the lessons we learned when we organized these consultations back in December 2019 in Rishikesh. While I am waiting for Vinod to join with the introductory salutations, here he is. So I will give him the floor and then I will take it back as he finished. Please, Vinod, the floor is yours.
So good afternoon, all of you from India, and good morning to people participating from the Western Hemisphere. My name is Vinod Mishra. I'm working as India head of WSSCC at New Delhi, India. It is my pleasure to convene this webinar on behalf of Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council, popularly known as WSSCC, and Global Interfaith WAS Alliance, popularly known as GIWA. We will be, our minister, Honorable Minister, sir, is joining a little late, but we will start on time. And secretaries are also joining very late. Renata Lok-Dessallian UNRC is joining. I don't know whether she has joined or not. I'm not seeing her here. But in the absence of all three, we should start. So, dear Sue Coates, Deputy Executive Director, WSSCC, respected Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswatiji, Secretary General, Global Interfaith WAS Alliance, Honorable Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji, Chairman and Co-founder of GIWA. Murli will be, so dear Renata Dessallian, she has joined. The Murli will be joining little late, 1-2 minutes. My colleague Enrico Muratore Apparazio, and around more than 200 respected participants participating from India and outside India. It's really a matter of immense pleasure and pride for me to welcome all of you in 2 hours webinar session on leaving no one behind under Swachh Bharat Mission. This webinar is jointly initiative of the WSSCC and GIWA. This event is actually logical outcome of the consultation which held in December 2019 on leaving no one behind under WAS sector, involving partners GIWA, FANSA and WSSCC. It is our great opportunity that 5 distinguished panelists have agreed to take part in the discussion, and it is a matter of great honor that Honorable Minister Sir also has agreed to address this webinar. He will join later on. So before that, I would like to invite my colleague Enrico Muratore Apparazio to give a brief about the roundtable discussion and program, but not more than 5 minutes. Enrico, please, over to you.
Thank you, Vinod, for your introduction. As you said, my name is Enrico Muratore Apparazio. I'm the technical expert for LNOB, Quality, Non-Discrimination and Gender at WSSCC. And I will be very short. I just want to recall the context in which this initiative has originated. The UN Resident Coordinator Office has requested all UN agencies in 2019 to support, to connect the VNR report process with vulnerable groups, to make sure that vulnerable groups in India are consulted for the purposes of the India VNR report as the contribution of the UN Resident Coordinator's Office to the Government of India in this process. And therefore, WSSCC has decided to engage in this process to support FANSA, the Fresh Water Action Network South Asia, and work with GIWA, Global Interfaith Wash Alliance, to invite the representatives of 14 vulnerable groups to Rishikesh from the 16th to the 18th of December 2019 to find out from them what were the impacts of the Swachh Bharat mission on them, on their access to sanitation and hygiene, and also get their recommendations to be integrated in the VNR report and also in future planning and interventions by the Government of India. These groups that were invited were represented by 144 delegates, and they are youth, women, older persons, persons with disabilities, persons living with HIV, transgender and LGBTIQ, sex workers, manual scavengers, Dalits, Adivasis, farmers, urban poor 1 shanty dweller and urban poor 2 homeless persons, and finally migrants and refugees. So based on these consultations, WSSCC and FANSA produced a report which is available online. We have provided the links with the invitations, and this was part of the UNCT India contribution to the India Voluntary National Review report. So the opportunity we have today is that we will have our distinguished speakers from the United Nations and from government to recall the key findings and recommendations who were expressed by those vulnerable groups on that occasion, and also show what the government of India did to consider this information for the purposes of the VNR report and also for future planning purposes as part of the next steps of the F+ and second phase of SBM and Jal Jeevan mission. So having said so, I would not like to drag it on too long and would like to give back the floor to Vinod to continue with the program. Thank you very much.
So thanks, Enrico. Now it's my pleasure to invite respected Sadhvi to give an overview of the important intersection of the government, UN organizations, and the word of faith in leaving no one behind, especially with regards to SDG 6, because she has provided all leadership during the consultation. So please, respected Sadhvi.
It's so beautiful to be here today, celebrating an ancient truth that is making itself more and more obvious and less easy to ignore. The truth of our oneness and inseparability. An infection in any part of our body, if left untreated, will eventually cause illness and even death to the entire organism. COVID has demonstrated so perfectly and beautifully that an infection in one meat market of one city, of one country, brings illness, death, destruction, and devastation to the entire world. As a physical body, we are only as healthy as our weakest part. It would be a tragic joke to say, oh yeah, I'm very strong and healthy and capable, except for this heart disease that could kill me at any moment. Or I'm really strong and healthy and capable, except for this gangrene in my toe that is seeping its way, moving up through my leg. We understand intuitively that one infection, one illness undermines the entire organism. In the same way, we as humanity are one organism, a collection of individual bodies, but united, connected, interdependent, breathing one air, living on one land. And if we didn't realize it before, COVID has made it abundantly clear that none of us can be sustainably healthy until and unless all of us are sustainably healthy. None of us can be sustainably safe until and unless all of us are sustainably safe. In order for development to be truly sustainable, it has to include all. It was such an honor for our Global Interfaith WASH Alliance to organize the Leave No One Behind Summit in partnership with WSSCC and FANSA here at our Parmarth Niketan in December, where we were able to review the great success of the Swachh Bharat mission under the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modiji, and the Ministry, first of Drinking Water and Sanitation, and then now of Jal Shakti, to truly ensure that everyone, everywhere, has access to improved WASH, water, sanitation, and hygiene. And in that summit, in addition to bringing together members of the 14 groups who are typically marginalized, typically left behind, we also brought together leaders of all of the major religions. The role of faith and faith leaders cannot be underestimated. Aside from provision of actual services on the ground, it is faith and faith leaders who set the norms for how we think, how we choose, how we act, how we live. It's our faith that tells us what is pap, what is punya, what is sin, what is merit. And it is also, precariously sometimes, our faith which tells us who is us and who is them. It tragically is frequently the world of faith that creates and then emphasizes these distinct lines between us and them on the basis of race, religion, color, culture, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, whatever it may be. And that is why it is so essential for the world of faith, for the faith leaders to step forward and break these barriers, to say, all are us. There is no them. In a beautiful serendipity, yesterday was International Peace Day. And faith leaders have been coming together for more than a century in the name of peace. But one of the things that our Global Interfaith WASH Alliance is so committed to is expanding that definition of peace. Because today, our definition of peace must include ensuring that all of our sisters and brothers of every race, every religion, every color, every creed have access to safe and sufficient clean water, clean air, clean soil, sanitation, hygiene, human rights, and whatever they need to ensure that those human rights are fulfilled. I want to end with a quick story. I used to volunteer at the Special Olympics in California. And the Special Olympics are, as you probably know, the Olympics for those who are deemed special. Whether we say handicapped, whether we say challenged, in either case, they are those who have unique abilities and disabilities on both the physical level as well as the mental level. And there was a race, a running race, in which 5 of the young girls who were deemed mentally challenged, what tragically in those days was referred to as retarded, that thank God we're no longer using terminology like this, but this is going back decades. And the ready, set, go goes, the gun goes off, the 5 of them start running. But shortly into the race, one of them trips and falls. Now, in what we would call a normal race, the other 4 of them would just keep running. Because of course, the ultimate goal is to cross that finish line as fast as possible, alone. But all 4 of these girls stopped. And they reached down and they helped up this 5th girl who had fallen. And it was amazing because from the stands, everybody was yelling, just go, run, run, run. But they didn't. They lifted her up. They brushed her off. And together, because her leg or knee or ankle or whatever it was actually injured in some way, she couldn't run anymore. So all 5 of them, hand in hand, crossed that finish line together. And they ensured that rather than 1 winner and 4 losers, that all of them were winners. And that is the vision that we need today, to realize that, quite ironically, stopping to help others is not a mark that makes someone challenged or handicapped, but it's actually the mark of those from whom we need to learn, from whom we need to take inspiration, so that our world can become one in which it's not one through the finish line and all the rest losers, but together as one interconnected humanity, as one organism of humanity. We survive and we thrive sustainably together. So I'm so glad to be having this beautiful webinar today. I'm so deeply grateful to our beautiful partners at WSSCC, and of course to the Ministry of Jal Shakti, our Honorable Minister, to the United Nations, and especially to the UN Resident Coordinator here in India, our respected Renata. And we're so grateful that today we also have with us the Deputy Executive Director of WSSCC, Sue Coates. It's such a great joy to be together with all of you and to have the wonderful opportunity to share.
So thank you very much, respected Sadhvi, for your nice words. Secretary Sir has joined now. Yes, Secretary Sir has joined. Sir, welcome. Secretary Sir has joined. And now I would like to invite Shri U.P. Singh ji. He is the Secretary, Department of Water and Sanitation, Ministry of Jal Shakti, Government of India. to share about the key findings and recommendation of consultation as a part of VNR for SDG 6, were considered by the government in the planning and implementation of Swachh Bharat Mission Phase 2, and especially for the Jal Jeevan Mission. Sir, please.
Very good afternoon to all of you. I hope I am audible to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I guess, yeah.
Very good afternoon. Very good afternoon to all of you, and I am extremely happy to be here. Of course, I was just now 2 minutes back, I finished another one, which was India-UK water partnership actually. So I was speaking there, and then I just found time for this. I won't take too long actually. I have been basically given a particular topic to speak upon. Otherwise, water is a very huge sector in India actually. And then if one starts to talk about different aspects of water, it will take a lot of time. But just as a beginning, I must tell you, a lot of people ask me, what is this Ministry of Jal Shakti? And earlier, our ministry was called Ministry of Water Resources, River Development and Ganga Rejuvenation. And the other ministry was called Ministry of Drinking Water and Sanitation. So both the ministries have been basically now integrated into one ministry, and that ministry is called Ministry of Jal Shakti. Just a half a minute on that. Why this kind of integration? In India, a lot of people feel that water is basically dealt at so many places in a very fragmented manner actually. The supply side doesn't talk to the demand side actually. If I have to provide a drinking water, I will do a bore well, but I will not try to bother where there is adequate water in the aquifer for that bore well or not. So one of the reasons why this is the first steps toward integration has been that the two ministries has been made one. Similarly, we were earlier dealing with Ganga rejuvenation, but all other river systems in India were not part of it, part of us. Now all the river systems are basically with us. So it looked very awkward that a Ganga rejuvenation is being dealt by one ministry, whereas rejuvenation of all other river systems are dealt by another ministry actually. So, but still there are two departments actually, and fortunately right now I look after both. I look after the Department of Water Resources, River Development and Ganga Rejuvenation, which basically deals more on a supply side of water actually, irrigation, flood control, all groundwater, everything. And then I'm also looking after as a Secretary of Drinking Water and Sanitation, where Mr. Parmeshwaran here used to be there. Some of you might have interacted with him earlier. He was there for more than 4 years actually. So I'm also looking after drinking water and sanitation. So since today's topic, I would be, Namaskar Swamiji. So today basically I would be talking only one aspect of it, which would be basically a Jal Jeevan Mission and Swachh Bharat Mission 2. Now, briefly about Jal Jeevan Mission. It is not that in India, see the effort of the government to provide drinking water to the people has started much earlier actually, maybe 50 years back kind of. But then our goal post has been shifting from time to time. I remember when I used to be in the field, we were basically happy with a well or maybe a hand pump or something. Now our goal post has come to an extent that now by 2024, we want to provide a functional tap connection to every household in India. So this is our new goal actually, and to be achieved by 2024. Now, when we started this, we have taken, even though Honorable Prime Minister announced this great initiative only on 15th August 2019, and thereafter the guidelines for this were released again by Honorable Prime Minister on 25th December 2019. But we take the beginning of this mission as 1/4/2019 itself. And on 1/4/2019 in India, just 3.27 crores or 32.7 million households out of almost 192 million households had access to a tap water in their premises, which worked out to be about 17% actually. Now from 17% taking it to 100% in 5 years is no doubt a tall task, but we are fully on the job, and whatever we have achieved in the meantime, I'm sure some of you have heard what Honorable Prime Minister has to say from the ramparts of Red Fort and what has been done in last 1 year, that in this, since beginning of this program, we have already provided a household connection to about 2 crore people actually, which is about 20 million people. And every 20 million household. And every day we provide 1 lakh new connections, even during this COVID time. 0.1 million new connections every day we are providing actually. And there are 2-3 very important components of it actually. It is not just first of all, it's a functional tap connection. When I said tap connection, it's a functional tap connection actually. So functionality is a very important component of our program. Then we also have, in terms of quantity, we have said minimum 55 liter per capita per day. Then there is a quality aspect of it. So quality, we are fully conscious because in India, quality has been a big issue, whether it is a fluoride or whether it's an arsenic or whether it is iron or now all other kinds of pollutants actually. So that's a very important component of our program. The 1 or 2, the other component, very important component is source sustainability. Because water doesn't come out of tap. Water comes from basically water which is there either in a reservoir or which is there in the aquifers below the surface. So having a very assured source of supply, a reliable source is very important. And that's why source sustainability is also a very important component of this program. Of course, this component also we have the program of gray and black water management, because more water would always mean that more gray water or black water would get generated actually. So management of that is also a very important component of the project. And then reuse of treated water also, whether it is for the whatever purposes, it could be for irrigation, it could be for any purpose, but reuse of treated water is also a very important component. And lastly, I would say that this is a program, or this is a mission, which is basically the community-driven mission actually. Implementation is community-driven. It is the community which takes the basic decisions about this project. Every village has a village action plan. So a villager decides basically how the line will go and everything. It is basically his decision. And that's why we, in every village, every Gram Panchayat, we have a Pani Samiti or village sanitation and water and sanitation committee. And we have also ensured that all such committees or all such samitis have at least 50% women in it actually. So this is as far as Jal Jeevan Mission is concerned. But equally important, where I would like to take a few minutes, is Swachh Bharat Mission 2. Now a lot of people feel that with Swachh Bharat Mission, our ODF status having been achieved on 2nd October 2019, that is end of kind of a mission. No, we have realized that sustaining a program is very, very important. So the first component of Swachh Bharat Mission 2 is sustainability. Because, okay, we constructed certain number of latrines, people started, we worked for their behavioral changes, people started using it actually. But then it has to be ensured that in times to come also, that infrastructure which has been created is maintained well, and people who have started using, they continue to use it actually. So that's sustainability part. There is another part of sustainability. Whenever how many houses are to be provided with latrines? So we did some kind of survey. No survey is 100% foolproof actually. Certain houses would be left out in the survey actually. So we have something called LOB. Right now also we are constructing a few latrines under what is called LOB, which is left out of a baseline survey. But then we also have a NOLB, no one to be left behind. So today also when I'm sitting here, about 21 lakh individual household toilets we are planning to construct in now 1 month or so. We had planned basically to complete this by end of September, but in some states it may overshoot the target by a few days because of the problem. You know, right now many of the states have a very serious COVID problem actually, which has affected the execution of the project. At the same time, we have also started constructing need-based, what is called a sanitary complex actually, community sanitary complex. Because in many places we felt that an individual household latrine doesn't suffice actually, and perhaps we need some community community sanitary complexes actually. So pretty large number, more than 3 lakhs community sanitary complex are being built actually. So that's one part of the Swachh Bharat mission, sustainability part of it, because we have not only to be ODF at one particular point of time, we have to remain ODF for all time to come. So even new houses which are coming, there's another category, LOB, NOLB, the third category of new houses. In India, new houses are constructed. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is a huge scheme. People get separated and then they construct a new houses. So all of them also on a continuous basis would be provided with the toilet, so that we remain ODF not as only as on 2nd October 2019, but in all future point of time also. So that's sustainability part. But what is more difficult part of the Swachh Bharat Mission 2, in my opinion, is basically solid and liquid waste management. ODF is fine. ODF definition was that every person has an access to a community or to an individual household, individual toilet. And there should be no open defecation seen anywhere in the river, in the village. But that does not make village clean. Unfortunately, even if you go to the villages or even go to the outskirts of city, outskirts of Delhi also, you'll find that a huge heaps of solid waste would be there. And liquid waste also, many of our water bodies today has become a receptacle for liquid waste actually. So solid waste and liquid waste management. Solid waste, it could be any kind of solid, including a plastic waste management. So that is one very important component. Other is liquid waste component. Either you have a soak pit or you have a waste distillation pond, or we have constructed wetland, but we are also taking into account both. And in our Indian villages, a lot of this comes also from the cow dung, the animal waste and their cow dung or their urine and all. So while we do all those composting and all, we have Honorable Prime Minister, basically with his blessings, we have started what we call Govardhan. Govardhan, basically it's a waste to wealth. And Govardhan is something, Gobar is basically a cow dung or animal waste. And Dhan is of course waste. So for that, we have started a very huge program actually on Govardhan to ensure two things. That it's not only that the human waste is taken care of, even the animal waste is taken care of as far as the cleanliness of the village is concerned. But at the same time, it could be a very good source of income for the villagers actually. And some of the successful models we have already studied. In fact, my predecessor has gone to earlier Gujarat, and very recently, my Additional Secretary Arun Baroka has gone to Banaskantha, where the cooperative, where about 40,000 kgs of cow dung is collected every day through tractors, etc. And that is basically now a CBG, what is called a compressed biogas. And a filling station like a CNG stations has come up there where the people are getting it, their vehicles and all filled up through the CBG actually. And we want to replicate this model also in all over India. Initially, we have selected 10 states where the cattle population is more. We also have selected a few places where we have basically what we call a Gaushala or the big dairy and all. So as far as Swachh Bharat Mission is concerned, we are taking care of not only sustainable part, we are taking care of solid and liquid waste management. We do understand that solid waste and liquid waste management is not a very easy job, because while construction of a latrine could be a one-time job, but a solid waste, because we generate solid and liquid waste every day. So right from collection to transportation to segregation to processing. So we are working on all that. Of course, we are working all this with the state governments, and we are committed that both Jal Jeevan Mission as Swachh Bharat Mission has achieved its goal within a stipulated time. Both Jal Jeevan Mission and Swachh Bharat Mission will also achieve its goal. So I think I would stop here, and thank you all for giving me an opportunity to share some of my thoughts. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, sir, for giving details about the Jal Jeevan Mission and Swachh Bharat Mission Phase 2. And we are looking forward to work under your leadership, the Government of India, and to support Government of India and the under Swachh Bharat Mission Phase 2. Honorable Minister, sir, can join anytime. We are waiting him. So, but in the meanwhile, I would like to request, this is my pleasure, our pleasure, that dear Renata Dessallian, the United Nations Resident Coordinator for India, has also joined us today in our discussion. So, so I would like to invite Renata Lok-Dessallian, the UN Resident Coordinator for India, to share about the UN collaboration with the Indian government, civil society, and faith-based community to ensure inclusion of marginalized population in plans and strategies to achieve SDG, especially SDG 6. So please, Renata, please continue. In the meanwhile, when Minister Sir will join, then we will welcome him.
Thank you, and very good afternoon to all of you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Okay, wonderful. No, it's really wonderful to join you. I'm really, really pleased to be with you. Listening to the presentations that have just been made is overwhelmingly inspiring. One from the spiritual point of view, and the other from the practical implementation point of view. So huge thank you to Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji, and also to the Secretary Shri Singh for making those really, really inspiring remarks. So we now have the spiritual side of us inspired, and the how should I say, the action, implementation, manifestation, inspiration, both together. I'll say a few words about water and sanitation in general, and also my appreciation of what's going on in India right now, which is truly extraordinary, and then wrap up a little bit with the UN support. As you know, few things are as important as water and hygiene for human well-being. Globally, over 2 billion people around the world lack access to safe water, and 4.5 billion don't have adequate sanitation services, which is absolutely astounding when you consider that, you know, we're 7 billion on the planet, and such a huge proportion are still suffering. Each year, we know that 800,000 lives are lost to disease caused by unsafe water and inadequate sanitation or poor hygiene. And at the same time, huge quantities of water are carelessly wasted. And we all know that these monumental challenges are made even bigger by COVID-19. The Secretary was himself saying how, you know, implementation of some of the work is really hampered by the constraints placed on us by COVID-19. And also our first lines of defense in the disease, of course, lie with people having access to the ability to wash their hands, sheltering in homes with regular water supply, and safe disposal of medical waste and public hygiene, etc. I'd like to say that in my travels around India, and unfortunately I haven't traveled much lately because of COVID, but in my travels before that, I was really deeply moved to see the iconic spectacles of Mahatma Gandhi. I saw them literally everywhere, whether it was the state capital cities or whether at the smallest villages. And I'm really deeply inspired by what they represent and what you have made of them, you know, Swachh Bharat, and now what's come after that. I'm also deeply impressed by India's strategically thought out plan to guarantee safe drinking water to everyone by 2022 and piped water to all households by 2024 under the Jal Jeevan mission. Today, I'm told that 96% of households have access to an improved source of drinking water. So that's really quite amazing. And I think we really should pause and really congratulate India for this. I mean, congratulate the ministry, the newly created ministry, congratulate the merger of the ministries, and the leadership behind all of this that has produced this very integrated approach. I'd also like to congratulate civil society for the vitally important role that they play in this, usually taking it to the last mile. So India really has proved that miracles are possible. And I think this is the message I'd like to stress today during these challenging times. Now's the time to rebuild inclusive and fair, new ways, a recovery that's inclusive and fair, so that we build back better from this crisis. And we can't do that without hope and hopefulness. And I think India's integrated approach to water, sanitation, hygiene really provides us reason to hope. India has not only taken water and sanitation seriously, the country has realized the importance of interconnected solutions through Jal Shakti, framing water as a driving force to supercharge really health and hygiene, as well as development and social justice. It's extraordinary how this vision to achieve open defecation-free India grew into this really intersectoral mission, which includes, for example, per drop more crop, about enhancing agricultural productivity, ensuring that 98% of elementary schools have separate toilets for girls, which of course enables them to stay on in school longer, and by the hard work to get over 26 million people participating in Jal Shakti Abhiyan events on water conservation, rainwater harvesting, afforestation, etc. This holistic approach really shouldn't be a surprise for us in India, because here in India, the spiritual connection between Mother Nature and water in particular and people's lives is really ingrained in people's psyches. So in a sense, it's not surprising that this revolution in water and hygiene governance occurs in India. The United Nations in India is proud to partner with this work, both with the government and with civil society, including the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance. And huge thank you to the GIWA for pulling this session together. Very, very important, and we're very appreciative of that. The UN in India provided support across many dimensions of this integrated response, including, for example, development of the Jal Jeevan mission guidelines. We helped build capacities around Swachh Bharat, supporting government and civil society to reach 250,000 gram panchayats in India. And we've helped, of course, with the rollout of the Jal Shakti Abhiyan. Recently, in the run-up to the United Nations High-Level Political Forum on SDGs, the UN in India was privileged to join with government and civil society organizations in consulting with 14 vulnerable population groups to feed into India's voluntary national review of SDGs. Today's session on SDG 6, and I guess to some extent on SDG 14 also, derive from these consultations. And let me say here that none of this would have been possible without also the leadership of Niti Aayog and the vision and hard work of our dear colleague Sanyukta Samadar. So I'm not sure if Sanyukta has joined us, but a big thank you to her because she helped make it happen as well. We'll be hearing the lessons that emerged from these consultations on these goals, but I'd like to highlight just a few things that jumped out at us here at the UN. Firstly is the importance of broad-based participatory management of water in general and groundwater, sanitation, and the Honorable Secretary has stressed the importance of this in his speech, in his intervention. Participation matters immensely and can make or break a great initiative. Second of all is sustainability. Water conservation and its sustainable uses are not just ecological concerns. For some tribal communities, for example, they depend entirely on natural resources for their livelihoods, for their well-being, and over-exploitation of those resources directly impacts their development outcomes and even their survival. And thirdly is social access, because we all know it's not sufficient just to build physical infrastructure. That's vitally important for sure, but social obstacles often need to be overcome in order to attain universal access. So indeed, to fully achieve the force multiplier impacts of WASH, we must continue and even up our efforts to leave no one behind. Whether we're talking about seasonal migrants or people with disabilities, women and girls or children, or other groups with special characteristics, or for whatever reason might have been left out, we need to focus on them. And to support this, we must insist on disaggregated data, and we must ensure our impact assessments look especially into how well vulnerable and marginalized groups are reaping benefit. And I see the Honorable Minister has joined us. So warm greetings to you, Honorable Minister. I'm almost finished. Swachh Bharat, of course, is a well-known story in India and around the world, but this larger integrated approach to water governance in all its dimension is, I think, an undersung story that needs to be sung. And we at the UN would like to sing that song with you. As we weather the COVID-19 storm and embark on the long path of recovery, let's use the inspiration of India's wise and holistic approach to water and sanitation to inspire us to build back better. The world on the other side of this pandemic must be fairer, must be greener, must be more just. India's water and sanitation missions give us hope and inspiration we need to make it so. Thank you all so much for what you're doing, and warm appreciation to the organizers of this important Lessons Learned webinar. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much, Renata, for your valuable words. Renata is the resident coordinator of United Nations in India. It is our pleasure and honor that Honorable Minister, Union Minister of the Government of India in the Ministry of Jal Shakti, most respected sir, has joined. It's a great pleasure. I would like sir to introduce our panel today. So we have Renata Dessallian, she is a UN resident coordinator for India. We have Sue Coates, she is a Deputy Executive Director of WSSCC based in Geneva. We have today with us Shri UP Singh ji, Secretary in Ministry of Jal Shakti. My colleague Enrico, respected Sadhvi ji, and Param Pujya Swami ji. Sir, I would like to introduce sir, Honorable Union Minister of the Ministry of Jal Shakti, Government of India, is actually spearheading the national flagship program called Jal Jeevan Mission, which aims to providing functional households tap connection to all rural households in India by 2024. And it is my pleasure to share that in the very first year of the program, around 1 lakh households connection are being provided every day in the country under his inspired leadership. He has also presided over the completion of Swachh Bharat Mission Phase 1 and carrying the torch of Swachh Bharat Mission into its Phase 2 called ODF Plus. मैं परम आदरणीय माननीय मंत्री जी का हृदय से स्वागत करता हूं, WSSCC की ओर से और ग्लोबल फेड वाश अलायंस जीवा की ओर से। आपने हमारे लिए आज समय निकाला है और माननीय मंत्री जी के कुशल निर्देशन और नेतृत्व में पूरे देश ने स्वच्छ भारत मिशन के प्रथम चरण को हमने पूरा किया है। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने 2014 में जो लक्ष्य निर्धारित किए थे, सारे लक्षित उद्देश्यों को हमने 2 अक्टूबर 2019 में महोदय आपके निर्देशन में ही हमने पूर्ण किया है और ODF प्लस की सारी व्यूह रचना महोदय आपके निर्देशन में ही इस देश ने तैयार किया है। और मुझे यह बताने में बहुत हर्ष हो रहा है कि आपके कुशल निर्देशन में ही कोविड के समय में जब पूरी दुनिया त्रस्त थी, सब लोग लॉकडाउन में थे, उस समय आपने परिश्रम करके और निर्देशन देकर और स्वच्छ भारत मिशन फेज 2 की जो गाइडलाइन है वो 1 जून को आपके कुशल निर्देशन में लॉन्च हुई, क्रियान्वित हुई और आगे के 4 सालों में उसमें काम आगे होगा। जल जीवन मिशन के अंतर्गत पिछले 1 सालों में हम यहाँ पहुंच गए हैं कि 1 लाख घरों को प्रतिदिन हाउस कनेक्शन दिया जा रहा है। ये उपलब्धि कोई आसान नहीं है, यह सब कुछ महोदय हम कर पाए हैं आपके कुशल निर्देशन और नेतृत्व में। मैं इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ इससे पहले कि माननीय मंत्री जी को उनके संबोधन के लिए आमंत्रित करूं, I would like to request Sadhvi ji to say few words about Honorable Minister sir, and then we will hear Honorable Minister sir. Would you Sadhvi ji? Then we'll invite Minister sir.
Pranam Sadhvi ji.
Pranam Jai Gange. It's such a wonderful, wonderful honor to have our Honorable Minister with us here for this beautiful webinar. The Honorable Minister is truly of such wisdom, such knowledge, such awareness of the problem and of the solutions. In a country like India, which for years we've been told is on track by 2030 to only have half the water that it needs. This is not a small undertaking. But since he has come in as the Minister of Jal Shakti with his Shakti and with his great wisdom and great understanding, there has been already, in just this short time, such a transformation, such a change in the state of availability of water here in India. Mujhe yaad hai, just a little over a year ago, I was speaking actually at Stanford University about water in a program there. And at that point, we were told that by 2020, 21 states of India were going to run out of water. It means like by now. But with the incredible work that the Ministry of Jal Shakti has been doing, and with your great leadership, of course, under the vision and the leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, we've all got such great optimism and hope for the future, not just for India, but for the entire world, because that which happens here is really leading the world. So thank you so much for your presence here today, but also and especially for your great leadership in this field and really making sure that no one anywhere is left behind.
Thank you very much, Sadhvi. Now it's my great honor to invite Honorable Minister Sir for his address.
Thank
Sir.
you very much, Vinod Mishra ji.
Sir.
Param Pujya Swami ji, Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswati ji, my secretary, UP Singh ji, and all the fellow panelists and people who have joined in this beautiful seminar, declared beautiful by the Sadhvi ji, so there is no point, no question. See, today's subject is leaving no one behind in water, sanitation, and hygiene. The countries in United Nations, the partner countries in United Nations have resolved in 2015 that as far as the water and sanitation country is concerned, each and every household have to be connected, and the timeline which was fixed for this was 2030. India being the second largest populous country and being the developed nation, the goal was really very critical, and it was looking in 2015, it used to be considered that it is going to be an unachievable task. But all thanks to the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister with the directions what he gives and the vision what he looks and the continuous persuasion and follow up what he does for whatever he decides. I think he is the biggest torchbearer in the world who has executed not only in the water and sanitation, no one left behind, the formula of the no one left behind for electricity, for banking and financial inclusion, for housing, for cleaner fuel, sanitation, and drinking water. So to bring the change in the common people's life and running in the with path to path with the line what UN have decided, or I should say that are far ahead of the goal which UN have decided. We have worked and we have achieved. Financial inclusion for everyone, no one left behind, we have already achieved. Cleaner fuel, no one left behind, we have already achieved. Housing for all, we are working on that. Almost we are very close to that, and by 2022, we'll be achieving that target, which we have fixed for that. Electricity for all, we have electricity for all, no one should left behind, we have already achieved. Sanitation, which was looking as unachievable task since almost 60% of open defecators were in India. But by the grace of God and continuous follow-up and persuasion and driving force of our Honorable Prime Minister, we have achieved it. And it's not only constructing toilets. It was the world's largest behavioral change program. So we could achieve this, all these programs, because of the political will and continuous persuasion of our Honorable Prime Minister. Public spending in that, partnerships, of the partnerships which we have done with all stakeholders, maybe it is you and the World Bank or all the stakeholders, the partnerships, and ultimately the people's participation. Our Prime Minister says that koi bhi kaam tabhi successful ho sakta hai jab wo jan andolan bane. The people's power, if attached with any program, it's certainly going to succeed. So with this philosophy, we have done it. And success of India is not only valuable for the country, or not only valuable for achieving the targets, whatever being decided by UN or any agency in the world, any platform in the world. Since India is a developing nation, it is a role model for so many countries standing behind in the queue throughout the world. India liberated in 1947. 1942, Mahatma Gandhi ji gave a mission statement that Angrejo Bharat Chodo, we want liberty. And after that, in 5 years, India got liberated, and in the liberation of India, the independence of India was not only important for all Indians, but it was important. It became important for all the people of the world. The whatsoever countries were not independent. They were colonized, got their independence in less than 30 years of time. And the system of colonial structure collapsed within 30 years. So whatever India achieves or attains, it creates a path for so many countries they are standing behind. I do remember when I was attending the World Water Summit in Stockholm last year. When I delivered my speech, number of the people, the head of the states or the rural development and drinking water ministers who were attending the meeting, they came to me after this meeting in our stand of Ganga, what we have displayed there. They came to me, they sat with me, and they said that they told with the pride that we feel that if India can do it, we can also do it. And they asked, they requested. I do remember the representative of many African countries, they requested us, please guide us how we can do it. We sent our expert teams, we gave them all guidance, whatever they required. And I'm so happy then that the path created by India, the people are going on that path. Similarly, after getting success in sanitation mission, our Prime Minister have taken, as my secretary was telling about, I was listening while I was driving in car that he was stating about, and he has paved my path that I have to speak a little because he has given an overview picture of bird's view picture of my ministry, that how we are doing it, how we are doing, how we are working for the concern what Sadhvi was being expressed in that the Stanford in the university when she was attending last year, that India is going to be passed in 21 states are going to be passed by 2020, by today. But now we can say under the leadership of Prime Minister, we have reversed the trend. We have started working for that. We have taken schemes for demand side management. We have taken the schemes for rejuvenation of underground water. We have taken the schemes to make India water sufficient for the futures. So we are working on that. And I thank Honorable Swamiji, Param Pujya Swamiji, and the people like him are standing with us with their complete dedication. So I'm so happy. If this also becomes people's movement, we are sure that we are going to achieve this goal. And again, we are creating a landmark and idol for the rest of the nation to follow. See, all the concerns, you talk about, because since I have to attend myself and UP Singhji, we both have to attend another meeting at 4 o'clock. It's a very important meeting for interlinking of waters, interlinking of rivers, which also is a very long pending issue in India, since India is observes almost 1/3 of India observes flooding every year, and almost 1/3 of India observes drought every year. So connect and grids a long dream. So for that, we have to sit together. So I'm not going to continue for so long. I'll have to leave amidst. But I'm so thankful to Swamiji and his entire organization for connecting the dots and driving the mission of the Prime Minister and mission of the India, rather I should say, this is a mission of all 1.34 billion Indians to carry it forward and make it successful. Thank you very much.
प्रणाम। श्रद्धेय माननीय मंत्री जी, 5-10 मिनट होगा, अगर हो तो उस अनुसार देन आई विल।
4 बजे जो है 2-3 मिनिस्टर्स, 2-3 स्टेट्स के चीफ मिनिस्टर्स और उनके ऑफिसर्स के साथ में वापस कंटिन्यू करना है, तो मैं फिर कभी आपके साथ में बैठ पाऊंगा, क्योंकि अनदर मीटिंग, इट्स ऑलरेडी 4 o'clock एंड the meeting, मुझे buzz, I am listening at my computer, so I'll have to join. You have to apologize me, and I seek apologies from Pujya Swami ji and everybody at the panel. Thank you very much.
Then I will invite Pujya Swami ji to just say a few words about you.
Yeah, please.
We are very glad that we have a leadership in beautiful country, our great nation, India. Our Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji. And we are very glad under his leadership, our Jal Shakti Mantri, Shri Hon'ble Gajendra Singh Shekhawat ji, who is a man of action, who is a man of vision and wisdom, who is a man of mission. I have seen him working tirelessly from one meeting to another meeting, from one conference to another conference, from one water body to another water body. Now bringing all the water bodies together, how the water in the monsoon also comes so much in India, but mostly water goes in waste. So now they are bringing the technologies, bringing the methodologies that how this water can be restored, can be used for the people who are really waiting for this water. मुझे बड़ी प्रसन्नता है, आप जैसे व्यक्ति इस देश के पास हैं। राजस्थान की धरती ने एक ऐसा शेर दिया है जो अपनी विजन और विजन के साथ पूरे देश के इस जल समस्या को, जल समस्या नहीं बल्कि जल समाधान बनाने जा रहा है। जिस जल चेतना को जन चेतना बनाने जा रहा है, जल जागरण को जन जागरण बनाने जा रहा है, इस जल क्रांति को जन क्रांति बनाने जा रहा है। आपके नेतृत्व में आपकी पूरी टीम, सचिव जो आपको दोनों ही मंत्रालय के दोनों ही विभाग जिनके पास आपने दिए हैं वे भी सशक्त हैं। पूरी टीम आपके लीडरशिप में बहुत दिव्य काम कर रही है। मुझे लगता है आने वाला भविष्य एक नए भारत की ओर जो यात्रा कर रहा है उसमें जल की यात्रा सबसे महत्वपूर्ण होगी और आपका योगदान उसमें सबसे ज़्यादा महत्वपूर्ण होगा। नो वाटर नो पीस। पानी नहीं होगा तो कुंभ भी नहीं होंगे, पानी नहीं होगा तो प्रयाग भी नहीं। पानी की वजह से ही मुझे लगता है भारत की जवानी भी टिकेगी, भारत की रवानी भी टिकेगी और भारत का भविष्य भी टिकेगा। इसलिए आपने जो दिशा पकड़ी है उस दिशा पर भारत चलता रहे। इसी शुभकामनाओं के साथ मैं एक प्यारा सा तुलसी का पौधा आपके लिए हूं ताकि इस कॉन्फ्रेंस की ओर से,
कोविड के समय इससे अच्छा और कुछ नहीं हो सकता।
अच्छी बात है, बिल्कुल ठीक बात है, बिल्कुल ठीक बात है। तो आपके लिए प्यारा सा तुलसी का पौधा हम लोग यहीं रोपेंगे, लेकिन जब दिल्ली आएंगे, आप यहाँ आएंगे तो आपको यहीं पर ही हम भेंट देंगे। तो आज वर्चुअली और फिर एक्चुअली हम लोग इसको देंगे। बहुत बड़ी प्रसन्नता है कि आप पधारे। मुझे पता है आपको जाना है, आप ज्यादा डिले नहीं करेंगे।
यूपी सिंह जी उस कुर्सी से उठ करके मेरे यहाँ आ गए हैं, अभी मुझे कह रहे हैं कि सर जल्दी करिए।
हाँ, तो now I would like to invite Sue Coates, Deputy Executive Director of WSSC, to speak about the accelerating progress towards LNOB and wash sector and how WSSC evolving to Sanitation and Hygiene Fund.
Thank you, and thank you for handing me the Zoom room. Honourable Minister, I also would like to echo acknowledgements on behalf of WSSCC for the Prime Minister's distinguished and unprecedented leadership in respect of access to sanitation and drinking water. And to colleagues on screen and to participants, thank you to my colleague, my UN distinguished colleague, the UN resident coordinator in India, for setting out the struggle that we still face, the challenges that we still face in respect of achieving water and sanitation and meeting the SDG. But I'd really also like to acknowledge that it is so good to be home with my dearest Pujya Swamiji and Sadhvi. The Global Interfaith Wash Alliance, as you know, is close to my heart, as is the Parmarth Niketan family. So let's have a think about what we're really engaging with and what you've given me a few minutes to share today. I join you from Geneva, and Geneva, as everybody knows, is the home to the United Nations Human Rights Council, the United Nations body whose mission is to promote and protect human rights around the world. At the heart of human rights, and here I quote Martin Luther King, is to never be afraid of what to do and to do the right thing. As we reflect on learning from the consultative process that you have led, and as we hear feedback, we feel proud that our action was right. Yet the feedback we present and reflect upon today must also consider if our actions then and since have been sufficient. Did we collectively do justice to the words, experiences, and realities that were shared? And what does this mean in securing inclusive processes as a regular feature of progress towards the SDGs in India? I believe that the VNR process in India shows what is possible when a country processes, when in-country processes benefit from diverse, trusted, and local partnerships. And it is encouraging to see a strengthening of the way we're holding ourselves mutually accountable for the success and failures of the SDG journey. The VNR consultation has importantly given space to those people who are often never invited to the table, meaning that accountability is as much about the right of people to be included in the measurement of progress as it is about the delivery of service or benefit. This for me is a clear example of doing the right thing. Findings in the VNR report further underline the importance of accountability, recognizing that if we want to know what has happened, we need a sharper, more credible and nuanced system for SDG monitoring. As Renata stated, there is an ever-urgent need to collect and present data that is disaggregated by gender, social status, wealth, and other vulnerabilities. This is so that we know who has been reached, by what level of service, and if that service is adequate, and if it's adequate for their needs. Why? Because people and communities left behind must make faster progress than the rest of the population. Because if they don't, we all fail, and they will be left further behind. Having had the privilege to work with our partners at GIWA and FANSA for many years, and having served the United Nations in India, I can say with confidence that the SDG consultation was undertaken with dignity, kindness, respect, sensitivity, and above all, equality. Those that were listening felt, and I believe still feel, absolute outrage at the inequalities witnessed by the first-hand stories of those who travelled to Rishikesh. I trust too, Renata, that as UN resident coordinator, as a result of the consultations and time put in, you were better equipped to present a distinctive human face to the submission presented to the Niti Aayog. I am also encouraged to learn that the Ministry of Jal Shakti, under the Honourable Minister's leadership, has given due consideration to the recommendations and will be continuing to strengthen the current phase of Swachh Bharat, as we heard from the Secretary, and the more recent unparalleled successes of the Jal Jeevan mission, so that people's participation becomes relevant for all everywhere.
I'm also pleased that work on Leave No One Behind is continuing and that WSSCC is able to support FANZA in conducting a social economic assessment of the impacts of COVID-19 on two more vulnerable groups, sanitation workers and, along with UNESCO, people with disabilities. This important work is part of the UN's wider commitment to ensure inclusiveness. Meanwhile, back in Geneva, WSSCC is moving on, and we have taken the bold step to transform our organisation into the Sanitation and Hygiene Fund, which will begin in 2021. I mention this here because at the heart of the new fund's operating model is country leadership and mutual accountability in the setting of priorities. What I learned from this consultation is that we can never allow Leave No One Behind to be only a slogan. We must really drive a process of being mutually accountable, and this must happen more often. It should be our norm. Leave No One Behind, as we have heard, is a political commitment, agreed at the highest level and led from the highest level. And it is our ability to say we left no one behind that should ultimately be our standard. Therefore, it is mutual accountability that is the work in progress, and the VNR process has in itself proved one significant step in the right direction. Before I finish, I return to Martin Luther King's quote, "Never be afraid to do what is right." Of course, what he went on to say is that society's punishments are small compared to the wounds we inflict on ourselves when we look away. India is leading the world, and we look forward to continuing our work with you to share your experiences of doing the right thing. As Sadhvi so eloquently said at the beginning, all is us, we are them. We must all be the winners. To those who made the participation and the consultation possible, and especially to those who spoke for themselves, I truly thank you, and thank you for letting me attend today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sue, for your details about the Leaving No One Behind and about the WSSCC. Though Pujya Swamiji has spoken after Minister Sir, but again, I will take a privilege and I would like to invite Pujya Swami Chidanand Saraswatiji. He's a co-founder and the chair of the Global Interfaith WASH Alliance. And the consultation which we held in December 2019, it was all because of his blessings. So again, we need his blessings. And I would like to request him to explain more about the fostering societal engagement in India through the interfaith alliances to address socio-cultural voices, stigma, marginalization, and include those farthest behind first in the benefits of the WASH, because he's a favorite topic. So I would like to request again, Pujya Swami ji, एक बार फिर से आपका आशीर्वाद चाहिए.
Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We were so glad to have the Honorable Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat ji with us. And Now, you all, our dear Renata, the United Nations resident coordinator in India, and beautiful soul Sue Coates and Enrico, and our Vinod Mishra ji. Last but not the least, our respected Dr. Sadhvi Bhagawati ji, and who is just left, our secretary to the Jal Shakti Ministry, Shri UP Singh ji. Many more are joined together through this conference, through this webinar. And when we came together here at Parmarth Niketan in December for the Leave No One Behind consultations, we could have never imagined that we would be seeing this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has been a global vision for us all, a global lesson also for us all. I truly believe that it has come as an ambassador of this concept of leave no one behind, allowing us to see more clearly the plight of the most vulnerable and marginalized populations. The pandemic in many ways has broken all borders and boundaries of caste, creed, color, race, religion, and country. Who could have imagined that an invisible virus would forever break all of our invisible and visible borders and boundaries? Can we believe it? It's amazing. Corona has shown the world now more than ever the eternal truth and timeless tenets of Indian cultural traditions. Our scriptures teach us Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. If I say in Hindi, the word is truly one family. When we are one, then there cannot be leaving anyone behind. There is no other to leave behind. This is the lesson we need to learn to ensure that these consultations and recommendations are actually implemented on the ground and in the field. Faith communities and faith-based organizations have a very, very, very important role to play here. Faith leaders must come together to inculcate the model, this value in their teachings through their congregations, wherever they are, and in their practices also. This is the need of the hour. This is the need of the hour. The pandemic is the opportunity for us to reach further and work harder to ensure that these gaps are met. It is a time for us to realize that everyone's health, everyone's sanitation, everyone's access to water and hygiene, and it is our individual and collective responsibility. It is time not only for CSR, corporate social responsibility, but also for RSR, religious social responsibility. I always remind my spiritual leaders, my brothers and sisters who are working in the fields, who are working with the people. I always remind them. And one more very important, that HSR, human social responsibility. We must remember this. India's efforts towards the SDGs, especially towards SDG 6, have been historic under the great leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji and his flagship Swachh Bharat mission. Amazing. No one could believe it, but India did it. India is on the way to do it fully, is committed, is dedicated, determined to do it, to achieve it. India has led the largest and in many ways the most successful sanitation campaign that the world has ever seen. India now must lead the way in setting the example to ensure our efforts and these great policies. reach the last person in line first. That was the dream and vision of a great leader of today and tomorrow, Mahatma Gandhi. As he said so beautifully, a nation is great, the nation's greatness is measured by how it treats its weakest members. They are our family members. I think sorry, I think that is how we must measure our true GDP, by asking ourselves, how are we treating those furthest behind? Because when we touch the furthest behind first, we are doing the work of the divine. We are doing the work of God and simultaneously touching the very essence and the spirit of India, which lies at the heart of the vulnerable population. In seizing their pain and struggles, in serving them, we serve ourselves and our collective sustainable future. Lastly, I would like to add that as the United Nations and affiliated agencies push for leaving no one behind in the Sustainable Development Goals, we must also ensure that our definition of leave no one behind includes not only human beings, but all living beings. For this, we need to take care of three things. Number one, our culture. Number two, our nature. And then our future is secured. Our culture means, to me, this means not our individual cultures based on our countries or religions, but our global culture of humanity and oneness. But rather it means our culture of togetherness, our culture of sharing and caring, helping and healing each other. We need to move from culture of asking, what for me, to a culture of asking, what through me. We need to move from a culture of becoming more and more bitter every day to a culture of being better and better every day. We need to move from a greed culture to a green culture. We have to move from throw culture to a grow culture. We use and throw, but we should not only use and throw culture which we are living today. We should create a culture of use and grow culture. Let us create a culture in which we live simply so that others might simply live. Mahatma Gandhi said so beautifully, there is always enough for everyone's need, but is never enough even one person's greed. Life is not to have more. I always remind to everyone, to myself even, to life is not to have more, but to be more, to share more, to care more, to give more. Let us create a culture in which we understand the world is one family. When we look at the world as a parivar, as a family, we cooperate and share and give. Our nature, which is very important. Mother Earth is now healing. We have seen it in Corona period. When we go inside, she heals. It shows us that we are the problem. And it shows us we are the solution. Today, it is COVID. Tomorrow, it will be something else. Even today with COVID, so many millions of people are dying each year due to air pollution and water pollution. Even today, so many more are dying of these than of COVID. When our air is polluted, our water is polluted, and our soil is polluted, how can we be healthy? Impossible. Impossible. Because if our planet and our Mother Nature thrive, then only can we thrive. I often share that there can be a plan A and plan B, but there cannot be planet B. There is only one planet. We must protect. preserve and serve this planet. And we can, we must. The power is with us. We just celebrated World Peace Day yesterday. This is the time to ensure that as we work for peace, we pray for peace and live for peace, that no one is left behind. No one is left behind. I wish these efforts great success. And I can see that success is there because you all are working for this. You all are working very hard day and night. You are the one who are concerned about this community and the future. I am glad to see with you all our Global Interfaith Wash Alliance partnering together with the Water Supply Sanitation Collaborative Council, soon to be renamed as the Sanitation Hygiene Fund, with our beautiful and dedicated and very devoted Sioux courts, in association with the Ministry of Jal Shakti, Government of India, and many other organizations like United Nations. I can assure you, if we work together the way we are working, everything is possible. Let us be together, work together, walk together, and save this beautiful divine planet. May God bless you all. Thank you, and thank you. I have a beautiful, this green beautiful plan to all of you to share, especially so I can remind you, a lot of time is gone. Maybe now COVID is the excuse, but COVID will be very soon over. Come home and bring everyone here to Parmarth Niketan, Rishikesh on the banks of Ganga. Love you all. Thank you being here. Thank you being together. Thank you. Thank you, Renata. Thank you.
So
thank you, Enrico.
Pranam Pujya Swamiji. I'm receiving the information from Sanyukta Samadar. She is busy in the Empowered Group Committee in the Prime Minister office. But she could join maybe for only for 2-3 minutes through the cell phone, but later on. In the meanwhile, I would like to request Bob to please screen the film which you prepared on the basis of the consultations held in Rishikesh. Over to Bob. Bob, please screen it. In the meanwhile, then I will manage with the Sanyukta Samadar. She is asking for the link, so I will send the link for the cell phone.
India, a motley crowd of several communities and social groups. Many are disadvantaged. Most are deprived of amenities as basic as sanitation facilities. That is why the Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council, WSSCC, joined hands with the Global Interfaith Wash Alliance GIWA and the Freshwater Action Network South Asia to organize the Leave No One Behind consultations on SDG 6 in December 2019 in Rishikesh. The consultations followed a formal process to bring out suggestions for the government for making inclusive policies. Involving those furthest behind in planning is necessary to formulate inclusive sanitation policies that meet the specific needs of these groups. India has undertaken the greatest collective behavior change campaign and toilet building exercise in human history. As a result, toilet penetration has gone up dramatically. The sanitation coverage in the rural areas of the country has increased to 98.6% in 2019 as opposed to over 38% on 2nd October 2014. This means that more than 100 million toilets were built in just the last 5 years. On 2nd October 2019, on the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi, the Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced that India had achieved the first key milestone. The ODF Plus mission is the second stage of the Swachh Bharat mission and will now focus on including those left behind till now. To achieve this goal, it is crucial to involve every segment of society, particularly those who are left behind and often excluded from basic services. Equal dignity and inclusion were Gandhi's goals. They are also the goals of Agenda 2030 for Sustainable Development. The Sustainable Development Goals and SDG 6 ensure availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. The summit was held at Parmarth Niketan, Rishikesh on the banks of the Holy Ganga from 16th to 18th December 2019. 142 women and men coming from 17 states and representing 14 particularly vulnerable communities were invited and consulted to assess the extent to which the Swachh Bharat mission enhanced their access to adequate wash services and identify next steps to leave no one behind in the ODF Plus stage of the Swachh Bharat mission. The findings and recommendations of the consultations will be shared with the government for the national report that India will present at the United Nations High-Level Political Forum in New York in July 2020. This will be a part of the voluntary national review process, which tracks progress states accomplish to realize the SDGs for all.
Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council, along with GIWA and FANSA, they had a consultation meeting on Swachh Bharat mission towards achieving SDG 6 in India. This is a part of the Voluntary National Review 2020 which India is taking. We presume that the recommendation of the workshop will be helpful to us in achieving the SDG 6 and maintaining the open defecation free status in the country.
जो SBM में अभी हमने अचीव किया है वो देखिए उनके जो पिलर्स थे सक्सेस के वो थे बिहेवियर चेंज और वो डिफरेंट तरह से बिहेवियर चेंज आया जैसे हमने आईसी एक्टिविटीज़ करवाई लोगों की निगरानी समिति रखी गई कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग करी गई तो प्रपोजल है हमारा ODF प्लस में उसमें ये फोकस दिया गया है कि आईसी के ऊपर हम पूरा फोकस करेंगे और कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग करेंगे जिसमें ट्रेनिंग्स दी जाएंगी सरपंच को और जो वहाँ के अदर फंक्शनरीज होंगे उनको भी हम ट्रेनिंग देंगे
I want to commend the Government of India for its partnership with civil society organizations with support of the United Nations this year in its preparation of the VNR 2020. This year is a special VNR for the government and for the people of this country because it puts a special emphasis on marginalized communities and those who have been left behind. I'm confident that these consultations will bring to the fore critical issues that are needed to accelerate progress towards the SDGs and towards the full realization of Agenda 2030.
As we saw earlier today with the event with multi-faith leaders, they have a huge power to bring about change in society. We talk about societal engagement. They have the power to talk to their communities, their congregations, which make up hundreds and thousands and millions of people across the country, to take the messages. A lot of what we're talking about here is around behavior change in our practices, in our homes, in our lives. It's also about changing social norms.
Water Supply and Sanitation Collaborative Council, a body of the UN, has done an extremely good job by organizing a discussion, a conference at Rishikesh. A lot of takeaways from the meeting we think would help us generate formulations for policy for interjections in implementation.
6 major faith groups, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jains and Christians participated, believing that faith is an important tool for promoting a more inclusive and just society.
मानव मानव एक समान, सबके भीतर है भगवान. इस लीव नो वन बिहाइंड तो बाद में है, लीव नो वन बिहाइंड. अपने जीवन में उस वन को पकड़ लीजिए तो आपने सबको पकड़ लिया, सबको जोड़ दिया. क्योंकि फिर आप किसी और को नहीं देखते हैं, न ट्रांसजेंडर को देखते हैं, न फिर आप सेक्स वर्कर को देखते हैं, न फिर आप गरीब को देखते हैं, न आप आदिवासी को देखते हैं, न फिर आप मुसलमान को देखते हैं.
बदल सकता है, जज्बात बदल सकते हैं, दौरे मौजूद की दिन रात बदल सकते हैं. यारो तुम बदलो तो पूरे दुनिया बदल सकते हैं.
For me, issues are very micro and very specific, that the documentation doesn't include anywhere LGBTI community, nowhere the sexual minority is mentioned. There should be a proper head count of communities where we want to give services.
The first day saw the orientations of rapporteurs of different groups. On the second day, experienced facilitators and rapporteurs facilitated the consultations of the various groups. Following UN guidelines, the consultation process included need gap analysis and supports needed for each group.
तो ये जो 14 ग्रुप आइडेंटिफाई हुए वो बहुत सोच समझ के हुए कि ये वो ग्रुप हैं जो मार्जिनलाइज्ड हैं, जो पिछड़े हैं, जहां तक शायद सरकार की नज़र नहीं पहुंची है, या जिनको स्पेशल नीड की जरूरत है. जैसे घर में एल्डरली कोई आदमी है, पैर में दर्द कर रहा है, आपने स्क्वाटिंग प्लेट उसका बना दिया तो वो तो नहीं कर पाएगा, उसके लिए तो कमोड चाहिए. तो थोड़ा थोड़ा क्या क्या किसके किसके लिए ज़रूरतें हैं उसको आइडेंटिफाई करें. देखिए रिकमेंडेशन की लंबी लिस्ट हमारे पास आपकी आ गई है.
In terms of translating the principle into action, essentially requires first giving the opportunity to the people who are actually excluded, who have been left behind. This consultation workshop of 3 days was a great successful event in terms of providing such kind of opportunity for all the people from the actual ground.
Our goal here is to really talk to them and find out from them what the situation is and after the Swachh Bharat mission's achievements, and what can be done more by the government and by the rest of society in order to enable them to fully exercise their right to water and sanitation and hygiene.
From everybody's mind, that discrimination must go. That sense of us versus them must go. But ये इतनी भी जरूरी है कि आपके मन से भी दूर हो जाए. जब तक आपके मन में होगा कि हम अलग हैं, तो फिर ये we will just be able to solve on a symptom level. This problem will not actually be rooted out.
On the third day, the group's rapporteurs presented the outcomes. The key messages of the groups were: 1. Equity and inclusion are reflected in the SBM incentives for construction of household toilets for the poor. But the most vulnerable within the poor were not specifically targeted. They were not consulted, so their specific needs were not considered. Disaggregated data are needed to track progress, specifically for women, girls, and the variety of groups in vulnerable situations. Those excluded from basic water, sanitation, and hygiene services are individuals lacking social and legal status, power, and capacity for asserting their rights. Unless families, communities, and the state take a proactive role in supporting their inclusion and participation, their special needs will remain neglected. Sanitation and hygiene are not just the responsibility of the Ministry of Jal Shakti. Community organizations, NGOs, and government departments working for the rights and welfare of the marginalized and vulnerable communities should also actively pursue sanitation and hygiene improvement in their initiatives. Marginalized and vulnerable groups should be systematically consulted on their specific sanitation and hygiene needs in ODF Plus phase implementation. Policies and funds should ensure that they can send well-prepared representatives to participate in planning, implementation, and monitoring of sanitation and hygiene programs at state, district, city, block, and village levels.
जब भी सरकार की तरफ से कोई योजना आती है, कोई भी वो काम करना चाहते हैं, तो वो हम लोगों को सेक्स वर्कर को भी इन्वॉल्व करें.
We have to understand basic needs of the LGBT community, and the second point is we need to understand the services if provided by the government, is that services as appropriate according to the documents and not.
गोटे पुओ जेमती जाउची गोटे पुरुष टॉयलेट गोटे झियो जेमती जाउची गोटे लेडीज टॉयलेट मु भी सेमती चाहूँ जे मो पई भी गोटे सेपरेट टॉयलेट हो बट ये हे जाउची गोटे डिस्क्रिमिनेशन तो आमे चाहूँ सब बेले गोटे झियो जेमती सामान पुओ जेमती सामान आमे भी सेमती सब बेले सामान हेबा पे सेति आमे चाहूँ आमर भी गोटे साइनेज लागू एमती कि ट्रांस फीमेल और ट्रांस मेल.
The Ministry of Jal Shakti, Sulabh International, the National Human Rights Commission of India, and other national and international institutions also participated in a lively dialogue with groups on the last day, when the various groups presented their findings and recommendations. Participants also focused on the need to assure that all women and girls can adequately manage their menstrual hygiene. An MHM lab was set up for raising awareness. Volunteers from different parts of the country came together to discuss awareness-raising activities on the ground level. The Leave No One Behind Summit happened in a friendly atmosphere where state officials, technical experts, religious leaders, and members of the disadvantaged groups in society came together regardless of any difference, ate together, and prolonged the conversation. This harmony was celebrated with several cultural events.
For any reason.
As India engages in the ODF Plus mission, all segments of society must join hands to make the change stronger, because one weak link can fragilize the whole chain.
सबके हाथ को पकड़ लेंगे. हम हैं समाधान, हम हैं साथ ही साथ, हम एक हैं.
So thank you very much, Bob. Excellent. Now, still I'm waiting Sanyukta Samadar, but I have forwarded the link for her cell phone. So let us see. I would like to request now Ramasetti Murliji. He is from Freshwater Network for South Asia, to give a brief introduction about the process, methodology, and key findings of the Leaving No One Behind consultation, as we saw depicted in the film. Murliji.
By the way, excuse me, Vinod, if I intervene, I would like to remind all participants that there will be a Q&A session. If you want to ask questions, please use the chat. We will make sure that they are asked to keynote speakers. Thank you.
And Pujya Sadhvi ji will be moderating the question and answer session. After this, Murli.
Param Pujya Swami ji, Pujya Swadhini Bhagawati ji, eminent speakers on the panel of the webinar today, learned audience, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It was such a exciting, enriching partnership for FANSA on this particular initiative, the national consultation that was organized in December in Rishikesh in collaboration with WSSCC and GIWA. So in my brief presentation, I would like to touch on two key parts. Number one, the process and methodology that we have followed to organize this national consultation with the representatives of the marginalized and vulnerable groups. And number two, the key findings of the whole consultation. I must say that the excellent film that has been shown just now has made my task so easy. I don't have to really go into a lot of details because everything has been so well covered in such a short span of time in the film. So it's I think rather easy for you all to understand what has transpired in the 3 days consultation and what has come out of it. Just to briefly talk about the process and methodology, the central focus of this consultation was to hear the voices of the representatives of the marginalized and vulnerable communities. So the representatives of the identified 14 LNOB constituencies were mobilized from different states of the country. Altogether, we had 145 representatives from these marginalized and vulnerable constituencies who have participated in the 3 days consultation process, representing 15 different states. The 14 constituencies, I'm not reading out all the names of the constituencies. It is there on my slide. I think all the important groups of marginalized communities and vulnerable communities have been represented in this 3 days consultation meeting. We have taken all the care and caution to ensure their representation and participation in the 3 days consultation process. And the process through which we have identified these representatives was the first priority was given to the organizations of the vulnerable communities, be it All India Sex Workers Association or the Transgender Association, Safai Karmachari Andolan. So the first priority was given to the associations of the representatives of the marginalized communities. And number two, there are civil society organizations working for long to defend the rights of the marginalized communities. Through such organizations, we have identified the most suitable representatives to participate in the 3 days consultation process. And as it was explained in the film, it was a 3-day consultation process. Day one was dedicated for orienting and training the facilitators, rapporteurs, and organizers. So the facilitator's job was to facilitate the focus group discussions with the representatives of the marginalized communities. The norms were clearly defined, spelled out, and all facilitators and rapporteurs were expected to strictly comply to the norms of consultation process. That was explained in the training program. Similarly, rapporteurs, how to capture the voices of the marginalized communities talking in the focus group discussions, and similarly, how to make the whole process very smooth and harmonious. That task was entrusted to the organizers. So those 3 groups were oriented on the day one, and day 2 was the day-long consultation process in the individual groups of the marginalized constituencies. The representatives from each of the 14 marginalized constituencies have met separately. They have had their independent consultation process facilitated by the trained facilitators. And day 3 was a synthesis of all the discussion, particularly the recommendations of what they want to do, and what they expect other partners, other sector partners, including the government, civil society, UN agency, everyone to do to ensure the accessibility of water, sanitation, hygiene services for the vulnerable communities was synthesized and presented in front of experts who have attended the plenary sessions on day 3, and they have responded to the recommendations and aspirations expressed by the representatives of the vulnerable communities. And already Pujya Swamiji has talked about the Interfaith Leaders Meeting, which is a wonderful, inspiring kind of event organized under the blessings of Pujya Swamiji. And then there was also a parallel activity, menstrual hygiene learning lab, which was also participated by all the delegates with great amount of enthusiasm. So I must say that the participation of the representatives of the vulnerable communities was highly enthusiastic. The quality of participation was very good, and high quality of participation and the commitment to be part of the entire consultation process was demonstrated by the delegates who have gathered for the 3-day consultation process. And similarly, the richness of the insights contributed by the representatives of the communities was also highly appreciated. And the power of articulation, I think, rather than somebody else speaking on behalf of the marginalized communities and vulnerable communities, when they are given an opportunity to speak for themselves, the kind of power it has and clarity it has was demonstrated during the 3-day consultation process. So now, that was the process and methodology that we have followed. It was completely driven by the representatives of the marginalized community. The other actors who were present were only there to facilitate, but otherwise the entire process was led by the representatives of the communities, the vulnerable communities. So to talk in brief about the key findings, I would like to highlight during the 3-day consultation process, the representatives have talked about Swachh Bharat mission and to what extent Swachh Bharat mission has reached the benefits to these vulnerable communities in terms of responding to the sanitation needs of these vulnerable communities. They did talk about what benefits have reached to these communities. Number 2, what were the gaps and challenges in terms of SBM implementation, specifically responding to the needs of the marginalized communities and vulnerable communities. And what are their aspirations? What do they want governments to do in future, and how they want the governments to act? They had very clear, specific kind of recommendations. All that has been synthesized in the report that has been published by Water Supply Sanitation Collaborative Council. But just to highlight some of the very, very important aspects. Where is the next slide? Next slide.
Slide is not, it's not moving, Murliji. So
yeah.
Maybe you can continue.
Yeah, I'll continue. I think the one most important key finding from the entire consultation process was that with an anonymous voice, the vulnerable communities were saying that they must be identified. It's not enough to say LNOB groups, vulnerable communities, marginalized communities, etc. Who are they? The whole thing need to be disaggregated. What are the different kinds of communities which are included under the LNOB groups? Identification of these groups. Where are they? In what number are they? Identification and generating such data, disaggregated data, is something very important. Comprehensive national level guidelines are needed for enabling each state to map out the marginalized and vulnerable communities to track their specific progress on SDG 6 with a stipulated time frame. Mapping results should be published and updated annually. This is very essential for targeting the needs of the LNOB groups. This is one very high level kind of funding. So before we talk about making progress on LNOB communities' needs of water, sanitation, hygiene, we should know who are they, where are they, in what numbers, and what are their needs, etc. That's number one. This is a major gap, and that is the recommendation or the message that has come from the whole consultation process. Number 2, while implementing the programs, the needs of the vulnerable communities must be prioritized. In the hurry to achieve national targets, the needs of the vulnerable communities should not be compromised. Rather, their needs must be prioritized, and whatever time it takes to meet their needs must be allowed. Jal Jeevan Mission and other wash-related policy initiatives and programs must prioritize vulnerable communities and include specific and clearly defined measures targeting the improvement of services for them. Institutional mechanisms for inclusion of vulnerable groups in planning, implementation, and monitoring must be enacted while framing policies and programs. So that is something very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's done, Murliji?
Now I have 3 more points. I'll be very quick on that. I think the next one is there are, as part of the consultation process, a lot of best practices were also talked about, which were led by the government in terms of meeting of the vulnerable communities. Such best practices, the technologies successfully implemented must be documented, disseminated. They are scalable solutions which should reach to all the implementing agencies so that they can be replicated in different parts of the country, which will contribute to making accelerated progress in meeting water sanitation needs of the vulnerable communities. Fourth important point was, in governments have been allocating huge budgets for water sanitation services. There must be dedicated budgets for meeting the needs of the identified vulnerable communities, and those budgets must be effectively utilized, fully utilized, and also there must be a robust monitoring mechanism to see how these budgets are actually utilized for meeting the needs of vulnerable communities and what progress has been achieved while spending the money for the vulnerable communities. And capacity building. I think the intention of the governments and other players in the sector to meet the needs of the vulnerable communities is not doubted, but it requires definitely complete reorientation of thinking, aptitude, and the skills and capacities. So it has to be taken very seriously to build necessary capacities and motivation among the implementing agencies, be it in the government, outside the government. Only then the real progress in meeting the water sanitation needs of the vulnerable communities can be met. So these are the most highly important kind of messages that have come out of the consultation process. I can respond to any questions and clarifications, but that Vinodji.
Okay, so thank you very much, Murliji, for giving brief about the processes and methodology and key findings. Now we are at the end of the webinar, but the last session is the most important session. It's a question answer. All participants, those who are participating from India and outside India, they have sent some question in chat box. And for this session, I would like to invite respected Sadhvi Bhagawati Saraswatiji. She is the Secretary General of GIWA, to kindly please moderate this session. And a few questions I have forwarded you, but we can ask participants if they can ask online these questions. Respected Sadhvi ji.
Pulling up the questions for me so I can read them. Just one moment. The questions, thanks. Yeah, the ones that he sent, right. So we have a question from Jutika Banerjee that says, we know the biggest challenge is scale up of safe water and sanitation across the globe. It is one of the most important parts of the SDGs. How do we address this in a country with more than 1 billion population? And even today, water-related drudgery work is present in many countries, including India. How can we improve this? By introducing participatory technology. So basically, we're looking at issues of scaling up sanitation, obviously across the globe, but at the moment we're talking about India, which is a big enough chunk for us to address at the moment. But so how do we really scale this up with regard specifically to technology so that aspects of sanitation work, water cleaning work, etc., is no longer seen as a drudgery, but rather can be something that we can really utilize the great technology that we have. And rather than calling on individual speakers, I would rather just open it up. We don't have that large of a panel, and to just allow those of our panelists who feel inspired to speak, to unmute yourself and to share with us your thoughts on this. My only request is if we can keep the interventions as short as possible so that we then have an opportunity to take more questions from people, that will be fantastic.
I think I should come in. We had silence. We're all being too shy.
Would any of
Yes.
the panelists like to speak about this? Again, the question is on scalability in technology here, especially in India. How do we really take this to scale?
Sadhvi, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
You can.
I don't have a way, just to the panelists, to let you know, I can't see if anybody's raising your hand. So just feel free to unmute yourself and to share with us.
Sadhviji, it's Sue speaking. I think what would be great to hear is some of the very localized work that you've been doing from Parmarth Niketan, looking at appropriate technologies and looking at how we can actually promote a sanitation economy where we're actually not only investing in brilliant ideas that are localized, but also looking at how we can encourage a more productive economy around sanitation. So Swamiji, maybe I can be bold enough to ask you to share some of the learning from Parmarth Niketan's outreach work.
Maharaji, and as they get his microphone unmuted, and just to introduce this, and then we'll have Pujya Swamiji share about this. It's a great point that you've raised, Sue. We have been, one of the aspects of GIWA that we've been so committed to is actually finding technology wherever we're able to find it and bringing it into a way that whether it's government or whether it's the corporate sector, that this really gets taken up by the masses. And just to give one example, a couple of years ago, we had found this beautiful and wonderful technology of water filtration, cleaning water that was coming in through the sewers and through what we call in Hindi the nalis here. And we had found this technology through a wonderful organization that was actually based in the Netherlands. They came in originally, we connected them with an Indian organization of Indian engineers, and we did a pilot project here in Rishikesh about this technology. And in that pilot project that we did here, we, of course, invited the Honorable Chief Minister to inaugurate it and showed him and the whole government this wonderful technology, then shared it with the central government ministry. And very, very shortly, the central government ministry called Pujya Swamiji, wanted to learn more about it. Very shortly, then Nitin Gadkari ji and Yogi Adityanath ji utilized this technology in Uttar Pradesh. And Pujya Swamiji went and they inaugurated this beautiful program then just outside of Lucknow. And then that was the same technology that was utilized in the Kumbh Mela to keep the water that was in the Sangam of Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati clean. So one event bringing in one technology in what Pujya Swamiji called a sewage point to a selfie point has actually become something that was brought to scale. And I'll ask Pujya Swamiji to share more about that and also to share more about other ways that we are bringing that type of technology here in India and getting it seen and implemented by so many others.
We shared this technology. Our Jal Shakti minister, he came all the way and he took the oath as a Jal Shakti minister. Next day, he flown here to Rishikesh and came and did the Bhumi Puja. And within 10 days, all the cabinet minister and many more were here, and our Namami Gange's Director General, Shri Rajiv Ranjanji, and many others. They all came. They were so happy to see in such a short span of time. Just in period of 10 days, we had a great success. And once from one side, the sewage is coming. From other side, the water is coming, the clean water, very crystal clear, even more clear than the RO water. Our engineers in front of the Chief Minister, they took the glass of water, took it from the same machine, and they drank it in front of the Chief Minister. Immediately he said, in the Kumbh Mela, we are going to try to use this technology. Then I talked to the Urban Development Minister in Delhi, Shri Hardeep Singh Puri ji, and he was also very impressed. Then I talked to the the very top judge of Supreme Court of India. He was here with us. He said, I am going to share with our judicial community and how through their decisions, this can be brought to everywhere in the nation. I think people who are working for this great work, I give the credit to all of them, because technology was brought, but then day and night they worked in India, in Uttarakhand, and brought this invention. I think in every field we need these kind of inventions. People are here, people want to do it, but with the help of WSSCC and FUNSA and United Nations and many more, we can bring this to India, and through India, then we can take these initiatives to the world, because they are third world countries. They need so much help, and we can really extend our hands, and India can do it. India must do it, but this only can happen but when all these UN organizations come together and bring this help, hands of help, and I can see the fruition. End of the day, it is there. And there are many other things also we are working in this field, and because we have a great help from the government also, not the financial help we need, but at least the administrative help is very, very important in India. No administration is there. You can't, if administration is not there, things are not that easy. So I'm glad that the government of India, the government of Uttarakhand and government of Uttar Pradesh and many, Bihar and many other governments are coming together to help to bring this to people of those states and of the nation. So I'm but very happy to see this collaboration working together. And in this way, we can see that there will be no one will be left behind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pujya Swamiji. We have another question. I think we'll take this probably as the last question. We did have some questions that came in for our government representatives, but since the Honorable Minister and the Honorable Secretary have had to go to other engagements, we will take these questions and send them to them later on and be able to provide the answers later. Maybe in the comments on social media of this webinar, we'll be able to put the answers later on. But we'll take the other question that's come in that's not related to the government at the moment, that says, it's from Jutika Banerjee, and it says, the WASH project in India has positively created a good direction and is also influencing the habits of the common people a lot. But there are a lot of challenges. How are the challenges influencing the direction? And how are we addressing those challenges? And I think one of the great aspects that we've seen in this webinar and also in this beautiful collaboration is we have the opportunity to address challenges from so many different ways. And so from the faith perspective, for example, we're addressing the challenges through changing how people think. We are not the organization that's able to actually go out and build the number of toilets that need to be built, or actually give the number of water hookups that need to be given into the homes across India. But the role of faith that is so powerful is that it actually changes how people think. And so when you look back, for example, to the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and ending open defecation, we watched incredibly how this role of faith transformed the entire campaign, because the problems were not just infrastructure. The problems were not just a lack of access to toilets. A lot of the problems were people not wanting to use the toilets that were being built. And being able to come in from a place of faith and bring in our sisters and brothers from all of the different faiths. So it wasn't just about a Hindu agenda or a Muslim agenda or a Sikh agenda or a Christian agenda, but rather it was a human agenda, a faith-based human agenda of really reaching out and helping people all across the country through massive, massive programs, understand the importance of building toilets, using toilets, practicing proper hand washing. We're now watching this happen with menstrual hygiene, for example, being able to take this great power of faith, of changing how people think, and be able to bring it into the field of taboos around menstruation and ensuring that our girls don't have to drop out of school when they start menstruating, for example. So from the faith-based side, the way that we address these challenges is the way that faith has always addressed challenges, which is communicating to the people and emphasizing and sharing and advocating visions of what is right, what is wrong, what is good, how we should think, how we should act, how we should go to the toilet, how we should clean hands, etc. And of course, the other last point about this is that a lot of the faith organizations in India and across the world are not just working from stages or pulpits, but actually run schools, run so many programs, and so have the potential and the ability, as we have had, to actually be able to get into the educational sector and change how children are thinking, to actually be able to bring in water education that we're doing now in so many schools to teach young children to be water protectors. So from the faith-based side, that's how we're addressing the challenges of talking the talk, advocating for the talk, but also walking the talk and actually doing as much as we can on the ground to be that change. But I would like also, before we conclude, and we'll keep this as the last question, to also turn it over to WSSCC and ideally to Sue, if you want to share how from a global perspective, you're working to address these great challenges. I know before being at WSSCC, you were our wonderful chief of WASH for UNICEF here in India. So you know the Indian context up close and personal. And maybe you can share some from that perspective of how we're addressing challenges.
Thank you, Sadhvi, and thank you for your kind words. I really think that you have really captured the most important point, that we cannot address challenges if we don't know firsthand what those are for the people who are concerned. And as this consultation has demonstrated, it's not good enough to interpret that voice. That voice has to come in person and has to be shared directly. And then secondly, of course, the need for participation. What we're seeing greatly is that social media, which we're now all relying on almost 100%, has a very, very powerful part to play here. And we have the Youth GIWA organization in India, which is really working hard to connect with millions of young people across India to think about, stimulate and challenge each other about the stigmas that are around menstrual health and hygiene. and to look at this from the perspective of young people and the issues that are really concerning them. That's not something we can govern, and nor would we want to, because those voices have to be able to take their own risks and be heard. We also know that partnership is really critical, and I'm delighted to say that VNR has been working very, very closely with the International Development School in Sussex, at Sussex University, and we have been working hand in hand with local government in India to look at the challenges and say, how do the challenges from one district play out to another district, and what is the learning that can be shared between people who are working day in and day out to come up with solutions, and to do that within the constraints of resources and within the constraints of their own working day. So I think those are critically important. And of course, finally, we know that we are desperately short of resources. We're desperately short of investment in water, sanitation, and hygiene. India is no longer seeking international investments because domestic resources and domestic willpower and domestic motivation and domestic leadership is really making the difference, as you've just described, from the perspective of faith and interfaith, but also as we see in government leadership. What we now need across the world is similar leadership, and also what we're seeking is greater investment from a whole range of investors who've never thought about investing in this area, so that we really can stimulate and act as a catalyst for how we make progress in countries that are really, really left behind and hitherto don't have the strategies and the policies in place as India so eloquently has done over the last years. So I think we're on a long journey. I think collectively we walk hand in hand to achieve that. But it really is about embracing diversity and ensuring that we are not leaving anyone behind until we can really say, as I quoted earlier, that our standard has to be that we didn't leave anyone behind. Back over to you, Sadhvi.
Thank you so much, Sue. And I know there are other questions, but I'm aware that we are already over time. And what we're going to do, though, is this video has been streamed on Facebook as well, on all of our Facebook pages. And what I would say is, if you have a question that we didn't have a chance to answer, please put that in the comments on Facebook. If you're watching it on Facebook, if you're joined with us on Zoom, feel free to keep that in the chat box on Zoom. Our beautiful teams will be getting those. And we will do our absolute best to get those questions answered, probably on our social media pages. So just keep watching there in the comments where we'll be able to get questions answered. So thank you so much for this beautiful opportunity to moderate the questions and answers, and back over to our beautiful team from WSSCC.
So thank you very much, Sadhvi ji, for moderating this beautiful session. I'm seeing a lot of questions like Afzal and Peter and Prachi, Avnish, many questions I'm seeing, but actually we don't have time. Already we have crossed 5 p.m. and the government people left because of the prior engagement. So I have given my email in the chat box, and I would like to request all participants, if you have any question, please forward me through the email. I will forward to the Ministry of Jal Shakti, Department of Drinking Water Sanitation, to the concerned person, and I assure you that I will try to get the answer of your question, and I will forward you. I will connect to the right person. So that's my promise on behalf of the GIWA and WSSCC. So now in the last but not the least, I would like to invite Enrico, my friend Enrico Moratore Aprazio, technical expert of LNOB, UND and gender, to wrap up the whole session and give the conclusions and vote of thanks on behalf of GIWA and behalf of WSSCC. Enrico.
Thank you very much, Vinod. I would like to thank all the participants, all the distinguished speakers for this very rich webinar where we have learned a lot about what the government has done to utilize the recommendations received from vulnerable groups in December last year, both for the report for the VNR and for planning next interventions in the frame of SBM second phase and GIWA missions. I do not want to be very long, given the fact that we are already late, as already highlighted by Sadhvi. I would like to say to everyone that we are going to produce a report out of this webinar and also a video which will be edited to eliminate some of the little wastes of time that we had today. So I invite you, if you have not done so yet, to share your contact details so that you can receive the report and the link to the video. And having said so, I would like to thank also the GIWA team, Nandini Ji, Sadhvi Ji, and of course Pujya Swamiji for their support to the organization of this webinar, and also for the support for the organization of all the activities that you have been seen in the film and through the interventions of the various speakers. I also would like to thank our distinguished guests for their interventions. His Excellency Gajendra Singh Shekhawat, the Minister of Jal Shakti, Renata Lok-Dessallian, the UN Resident Coordinator, Mr. Shri UP Singh, the Secretary of the Department of Water and Sanitation, and Ramizet Murali again. And again, I would like to thank GIWA for your very inspiring interventions as always, Pujya Swamiji and Sadhvi Ji, and last but not least, my Deputy Executive Director, Sukots. And I do not want to keep you very long anymore. Many things have been said. Once again, thank you everyone, and let's keep in touch with the next steps to leave no one behind in WASH, and particularly in sanitation and hygiene in India and beyond. Thank you very much.
So thanks, Enrico. Now I will get permission from Pujya Swamiji to close this session. Pujya Swamiji, अभी से बंद करें. जी. So with the permission and blessing of Pujya Swamiji, and now we are going to close this webinar. We are really very grateful to respected Sadhvi ji and unki jo team hai, especially Nandini ji and his entire team, her entire team. They worked very hard. So thank you very much everyone, and especially participants from India and outside India, those participated and contributed in the questions. Certainly I assure you that I will get back to all of you if you will send your question through the email. So Pranam Swamiji, Sadhvi ji, Pranam. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks everyone
for such a beautiful webinar, and thank you so much, Vinodji, Enrico, your entire team for such dedication and such commitment. And thank you so much to our GIWA team, our behind the scenes GIWA team, our Ganganandini ji, Dr. Krupali ji, our entire beautiful team that have been running this together with the beautiful team from WSSCC. So thank you all so much, and so much love to you.
Bye-bye. I'm going to end the meeting now.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.